Well, once again, it's time, my friends, for another meet and greet. We're Southern Fried and nationwide, so hang on to your seat. Look around, here's what I found. I guess you'll never know what you'll see on the Southern Fried Podcast Show. Yeehaw!
Yeehaw! Good morning. Dave in the AM here, Southern Fried Podcast morning show. Let me get a more light on the situation here. We hope you're up and Adam and ready to go this morning. Partner Robert, not in the studio yet. He'll probably pop in anytime. Congratulations to him on, I think he said it was a new baby, and if I remember right, he said a new niece or cousin or something like that. But regardless, he sent me a picture last night. When he gets up here, we'll be able to show you that. I'm sure he'll be glad to show a baby. Everybody likes to see babies, right? I mean, that's just a blessing. And, we always say the same thing, right? He sent me a message and he said, 10 toes and 10 fingers and everything in between. So all healthy. And that's a blessing. So congratulations to their family. That's always a fun thing to go look at the babies. And, that's a monumental moment. I mean, in your life when you have a child and, it's the first one is really interesting because fix my collar here. The first one's really interesting because you've never been a parent before. And all of a sudden, or maybe you helped your sisters or brothers or whatever, maybe a lot older, but still it's the first time you've become a parent. And that's always a great time in your life when you have something like that going on. But anyway, Southern Fried Podcast morning show. Glad you're here. We're on from 6 to about 7. Sometimes we'll go over just a little bit. Depends on what's going on and how we do. If the show is really going really good at the end and we got some things we want to cover, we might go over a couple of minutes. We're glad to be here on Dave. Rob will probably be in a minute. We have Chris, and pray for Chris. I've been sick. And then Chris has had something going on as well. He hasn't felt good. And then we have another part of the crew, Cowboy Cook. He doesn't usually come on the morning shows or the live evening shows, but he's a big part of our sports team. Glad to have him along. We're glad you're here. Happy. Well, hey, we made it to Hump Day, and then we'll be back on tonight live on the Wednesday evening for our Hump Day News Live. And that's always fun when you get to the middle of the week. You can kind of see the daylight ahead, kind of see that weekend's coming. And we're on now Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on the morning show. And you never know. We may pop in on Tuesday or Thursday. Just depends on what's going on. And then we have the Wednesday night live. And then Friday is our Friday night, 7 or 8. I think we've done it both. But front porch talking. We go on the front porch, just have a glass of sweet tea, so to speak. And that's where you wave at the neighbors and strangers and everybody else and talk about whatever the conversation takes. It's kind of like going down the local, for us guys, we understand going to the local barbershop, and there was always conversation going on, always somebody talking about something, and you just enjoyed going down there and and talking about the news of the day, politics, whatever. Yeah, you did talk politics in the old barbershop. But you seem to be back in those days when I was young. Even up into my 30s, maybe close to 40 before my barber retired. He has since passed. And it's not the same. I go to a different place, doesn't have the same feel, so I kind of miss that. Maybe I need to find that again. There's not any real close to me. There's one a little bit of ways from me now. They've kind of moved further away, so I've just been going to someone closer. So that's some of our live programming. And then this week, I wasn't able to be there. We do a show called Mama Said. And Mama Said was live. And so we talk about things on that show that Mama said. Mama says and has said a lot. And we like to talk about that. Well, what's going on this morning? Well, down here in the South, it's been hurricane news. I was just looking at some of the pictures and video from the Georgia Emergency Management folks and Homeland Security from down in Bullock County and I think Toombs and Jeff Davis County. And of course, they've been getting massive amounts of rain. I know Florida, same way. Roads washed out, collapsed, trees down, obviously, and then massive flooding. I've seen some homes, unfortunately, underwater, enough that it would be damaging One person said in their county they had gotten 13 inches of rain and it was still coming. There's just nowhere for that amount of water to go in a short amount of time, but just to flood out. And so some of those are low-lying areas. In fact, a lot of them are flat, and there's just nowhere for the water to go. So you get flooding. So let's pray for those folks down in Florida and in Georgia and up in the Carolinas, because they're going to face on the coastal regions, they're going to face the same thing. They're used to that. It's never, I like what quote someone said. They said, you never get used to it. You know, some people say, well, you live in Florida or you live in those areas, you get used to it, don't you? They said, you never get used to it. You just deal with it. So you start rebuilding, you start fixing. I mean, because there's only so much you can do. And some people might have the attitude, and I've heard them say it, well, why do you live there? Well, you got to live somewhere. And we could say the same thing about earthquakes or Tornado Alley. I mean, look at all the tornadoes. You get up in Tornado Alley and how many of those come across in a season, multiple states. Maybe it's hit or miss on some of them. And hey, there's Robert coming in, and we're glad to have him. He'll be popping up here in just a second. Let him get his the sand out of his eyes. Oh, he's still wiping them out. So good morning, my brother.
Morning. Good morning.
Hey, I got we're getting better at technology and stuff and just figuring things out. Robert, we're on multiple streams this morning. I hope I got them all. I may have missed one. I may have messed one up, but I think I got them all. I got the Facebook and YouTube and X. Well, there's those we had, but then I think we've got the Rumble fixed this morning and a new one, Twitch. And so wherever people come in from, grateful to have them. I was just telling them that you had a nice evening visiting a new baby, and remind me again, because I can't remember. Did you say niece or cousin, or because I think you got a story about that anyway? Tell us about. You don't have to give names. I understand we're on the air, but it's always great to have a new baby in the family. Tell us about that baby.
Well, it's their first baby, 8 pounds and healthy and 10 fingers and 10 toes. It's got all the important stuff.
Yeah, that's what I was telling them. You told me last night, and we kind of say that, but we do look, don't we, as new parents or visiting a baby, you feel all those little toes and fingers. Healthy baby. I'm sure those are proud parents. Is this their first child, or is this another? They have multiple children.
This is their first child.
There's nothing like it. I mean, each one is special. But that first one, it's just it changes your world. The first child.
It really does.
Well, I hope y'all had a good visit. How far is now? You said Bainbridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
How far is that from where you live?
It's about 30 minutes.
Okay, not bad. Not bad. About for me, like from here to Lafayette, as we say around here. That's about 30 minutes for me. I was also given an update a little bit. Rob, I was looking at the Georgia Emergency Management Facebook, and they were showing some of the damage and flooding and stuff out of Bullock County, Toombs, Jeff Davis. How about your area? I know you did get some rain, but I think y'all dodged a bullet on that. But you did get some rain and wind, but I don't think y'all got hit like some of those counties are getting hammered right now. One county said 13 inches is still counting. That was 6 hours old when I saw that post.
Wow. And see, I think the way it hit, it shifted just enough to the west or to the east.
Yeah, to the east.
We stayed to the west of it, and I think we got about 6 drops.
Oh, wow.
We got nothing like about 6 drops. I watched the bands come in, and we got a couple little showers, but nothing major.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. I mean, and then Monday we got about 6 drops of rain total.
Ain't that amazing how those things shift just a little bit as they move? And that one little shift, it's more over somebody else, and then some other people go, man, we dodged it, Yeah. Nothing. And I know you were kind of concerned about it there for a couple of days because you was talking about the path trajectory, as they call it. It was headed up the coastline of Florida. You said the last one that y'all got hit with pretty significantly was which one? Did you say Michael?
Michael, yes.
Michael?
And Michael was still a Category 1 when it went over here.
Okay.
If I remember correctly. and it was a bad one. That was the year before we moved down here, and everybody is still terrified of Michael. And
Yeah.
I mean, it wiped out a third at least of the timber farms and stuff like that. It just mangled them.
Well,
And
you know,
there's
the
still,
yeah, go ahead.
you can still see where Michael went through here. I mean, it stripped trees and everything else. One of the saddest things, ever since I was a kid, on the way down to my grandparents from Albany, Georgia, there's this road, 91, and it's got these huge oak. It had these huge oak trees, and it was like driving through a tunnel because their branches they were just huge and majestic. These live oaks, and they had trimmed them, and they grew over the road, and it was
Wow.
like driving through a tunnel for miles. It was amazing. As a kid, I enjoyed it. I mean, it was one of the coolest things ever.
I
The
know
storm
when
through, and they're
the
gone.
company I work for that you used to work for as well, we have a facility, I think, still in Bainbridge. And one of the contractors for us, electrical contractors that works for us, they were dispatched down there to do some work to get the plant back straight. And he was telling us all of the carnage, I guess you'd say, that was just on the side of the roads. They just knocked out of the way, was
Mhm.
waiting for pickup, you know, to come along and cut it down or whatever. But he said it was like a war zone. He just never seen nothing like that. So it did hit hard. And that's amazing. You said it was down to a Cat 1. But people think the Cat 1 is still even a tropical storm, that's a very powerful storm.
It is.
We're just talking about wind speeds. It's still got all the rain and then if you have that, as we were talking, I think the other day, as if it kind of stalls and kind of parks over you for a little bit, then you're talking about much worse because the rain is still pouring down. It's carrying all this water, and it's just over you for a longer period of time. And a lot of those areas down there, Rob, they're low lying, meaning there's no mountains really until you get to certain areas of the state, and so the water's got nowhere to go. It takes a while for that to run off.
Yeah, and when you talk about low lying, a lot of these areas hold water year round. I mean, and it's just runoff water. And that's all
Yeah.
it is. But they'll hold water year round because we get just enough rain to where it keeps everything full. They'll dry up every once in a while, but it ain't got nowhere to go when it comes down in buckets like that. It ain't going to stop laughing at me. I know I got up late.
No, it ain't that. I was thinking of a video I saw, but it does remind me of you. That's what I was getting laughing at. I was just waiting for you to finish. I saw this video just yesterday on one of the social networks as I was updating some of our stuff that we don't go live to. And there was a video of a guy on a zero turn, and you just got a zero turn, and you've been out there, you got a lot of yard to mow. Well, this guy when you said low lying, it reminded, this guy got down near his low lying area, and I don't guess he realized that that even though it's zero turn, it'll still mire up in the mud, and he had sunk that thing on one side all the way to the ground. And he had backed his truck up down there and gotten some chain out and was fixing to pull her out, and his neighbor come over and was helping him. He got a little too close to the low lying, and there, it's a heavy machine, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
And the mud, we've talked about it a bunch of times, people thinking they're just going to drive through that Georgia clay like it's nothing. And nope, the zero turn didn't have any turn or forward or backwards left in it. It was sunk up.
I about mired mine up here in the front yard.
It don't take much to do it.
No.
Back in the day, my grandmother, she didn't have a zero turn. She had the old, what were they? Was it Craftsman that had they sold tons of them. Had the motor on the back, obviously, and it had the steering wheel.
Snapper.
Yeah, it was a Kraft Snapper. But I mowed her grass a lot. All of us cousins would help her out, or her sons. And if my dad was there, you know how it is. If you're there with your dad, you're mowing. I was just thankful he let me use the riding lawnmower some, because a lot of times I was doing the trimming.
Yeah.
That's a kid's job, get the push mower, the weed eater out. But one day, for some reason, I don't remember why, maybe he had to go do something. And he just said, finish this part. So she had a couple of areas that was kind of low, and I about got her stuck. And I was thinking, oh man, my grandfather had already passed. And I was thinking my grandmother's going to give me a hard time if I sink this thing up, but I didn't. But I messed the yard up just a little bit. But it's in the low. She didn't see it. But she also had like a part of it was on the hill, and those are challenging. Well, I didn't realize because I'd never done the hill, if you can, you just lean to one side and kind of go, across it.
Mhm.
Well, I was trying to go up it. I didn't think about that heavy motor on the back. And I was only probably, I don't know, 12 or 13 years old or something like that. But what made it happen is on that snapper, it had that clutch was not instantaneous. You had to learn how to do it. It was kind of a slow engager, had like the cord or whatever, and you'd let go of it. And I let off of it. So it just jumped and it raised up the front wheels. And here I am leaning forward. And I thought, I just about flipped this thing over. Of course, the first thing I did was look around and make sure nobody saw me.
Yeah.
And then get on up the hill, and I thought, I'm not doing that again.
So you popped a wheelie on the snapper mower.
I popped a wheelie on the snapper mower. It was my grandmother's too, not even mine. I mean, if it's your own stuff, you're kind of like, okay, but this is grandma's,
Yeah.
By the way, she was always grandma and she was never granny. She'd get ill if you said granny. She learned it was, and that was her. Some grandkids call their grandparents different things. With her, it was always grandma or grandmother. She wouldn't let Granny, Mimi, Nana, all that stuff. My grandkids have got 2 or 3 different names for my wife. Hers is always grandma, grandmother. She didn't play that.
My mom told me one time, and I asked her, I said, "What do you want the youngest to call you?" She said, "Grandmother." I said, "No, Granny? No, grandmother." I said, "Okay." So, as soon as I got up big enough to talk, they were calling her Granny Mother. And
Granny Mother.
Yeah.
Yes, Jennifer, live and learn. And I'm just thankful to live and learn. If I'd have flipped that thing over, what would have happened? My grandmother would have, she'd been concerned, are you all right? And she was kind of a hard, straight talker. All my family on that side of the family was. But my dad, he would have probably just wanted to kill me. You did what, son? You know better than that. And I'd be thinking, no, Dad, you didn't show me, but you do live and learn and not get at those things mired up in the low areas. And, I used to have this neighbor and he finally got his backyard where you could really mow it. But part of his yard was rocks. The guy, bless his heart, he just pushed his mower to the rocks. And one day I was mowing my grass. I didn't realize he was out there. And all of a sudden a rock hits the front of my mower. I mean, hard, like I put a dent in it. And I looked up and there's rocks flying all out of this guy's lawnmower. I just had to stop and take cover. It was like incoming artillery, man. So I if I ever saw him out, even thinking he was going to mow, I never tried to get out in the backyard and do anything. But you know what he did? He finally slung all them rocks out of his yard and grass got in your yard. Yeah, they're all over my yard. I picked up rocks forever. But you know what? This guy was a World War II vet, hard worker, used to run a gas station up here and was my neighbor for years. I really liked him. We probably as kids gave him too hard a time as teenagers, but he really was great. He would tell us stories, but and just to transition just for a second, he was a boiler guy. Like a destroyer. It might even been a battleship. Well, and I say boiler, this goes, way back. We didn't have all the nuclear yet. And so he would talk about how hot it was down there. And the only time you came to the deck was for assembly. So you just sweated all the time. And he also talked about when those guns would go off, how much hotter it got and the force pushing that ship back, battleship. And the only other thing he told me was he got Liberty down in the Pacific. As he said it like this, not around his wife. He said, we got Liberty on one of them little islands. He kind of leaned in with a wink. He said, with all them pretty little island girls. And that's all he would say. That was his first Liberty when he had went off to war. From the time he got on the ship, going through battles and everything, and finally got Liberty. And they were in a paradise. And you can imagine, I think he was 18, 19 years old at the time. And he could have been 17, but he never would mention that around the wife. But they were my neighbors for a long, long time. But I I wish that when we were kids, and some people were smart and did it, but I wish that we had just turned on the recorder sometimes and captured some of those stories. And a lot
Yeah.
of them are gone forever now. We don't hear them.
Well, I know my great uncle, my uncle Ivy. That's my granddaddy's older brother. You know, I run around with him forever when I was a kid, and he was all. I mean, he was the stereotypical old coon kind of. It was and just amazing stories, amazing. You just sit back and listen to him. I could listen to him all day, and you know, and some of the stories he got into, even after I came along, you know, some of the stuff that we got into, you know, it was just it was fun, and it was a big deal.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad I got that time. So, uh,
A lot of soldiers didn't, uh, if they lived long enough, some of them started talking a little bit more than they maybe even had, especially if they were in heavy combat. Um, that's right, Jim. We got to capture every moment now. And the ones we need to be doing that with now, yes, the Vietnam vets, who I was talking about this the other night, how quickly we're losing the Vietnam vets now. But the next group is the Gulf Wars. And we've lost some of those. I'm not talking about those in combat. Yeah, we lost them, but I'm talking about people that just, think about how far we are out now from the first Gulf War. Time goes by so fast.
it does.
That is still a long time. And we've got to talk to those folks and get their stories and stuff. I'm not talking about gory blood and guts kills. I'm just talking about acts of bravery, what they kind of went through, what those firefights were like, and how people reacted in situations to save a company or to rescue people. One of the great stories that I read, it was I can't remember her name right now. She was out of West Virginia. Was it Jessica something? I can't remember. I bought her book at a used bookstore and read it. She was one of those that got captured. Remember the convoy? They got turned around in Iraq. They were supplies, and they got captured. Well, she had been. Let's just face it. She was abused. She was also hurt very seriously. In fact, she was in a kind of a hospital setting, even though they weren't being nice to her and had abused her. She was in some sort of, and there was a couple of the doctors that were trying, because doctors are doctors, trying to help her, but they kept her alive. And she talks about and I think it was the Marines who came in. And it's just one of those things. She didn't know what was happening at first. She heard, she's hurt bad. She just hears the noise, but one of the greatest sights in the world was seeing that soldier come through the door with the American flag on. I don't remember if it was on his uniform or his helmet, whatever it was. And she said, I knew at that moment I was going to be okay. And of course, they got her to a safe zone, medevaced her out, and she spent a long time in recovery. But she wrote a book about her experiences, and she didn't try to go into that part. That's just something private. And, it doesn't need to be repeated. We know how evil people can be in war. But she lived, and she got back home, this little town in West Virginia, and served, served her country. That was horrific. Some of the Iraqis, they love to show those videos of those. These are mighty warriors, right? Video of the girls that were scared out, scared for their lives and everything. That's some real good men right there. You know what you're dealing with when you got somebody doing that. I don't want to get into our enemies or whatever, but we're sitting here on the verge of who knows what in the world. We've got conflicts all over the world, and we're here in an election season, and this time frame, I worry about a little bit, concerned. We have to pray a lot because there seems to be there's a vacuum of command.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. Nobody can tell me that If you feel good about what's going on right now, there's something wrong with you. I don't care. It's a vacuum of command. It's strange what's happening.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And these Iranians and everybody, they come out of the woodwork, and when anytime there's any kind of civil unrest or anything going on, anything to distract the world from them, that's when they come running out to show their true colors.
Yeah, in Israel, of course, the Middle East is literally blowing up. Israel has been continuing. They took out a Hamas leader and a Hezbollah leader. One of those was in Iran. And one of them was involved in the October 7th. And, there's feelings on both sides of this, how far it's gone and where it's at. But there's still hostages out there. And some of those are American, have American citizenship. But anyway, because of those two takeouts of leaders, there's these threats coming from Hezbollah and Iran even. And Israel's on a watch right now. There's belief, there's intel. And in fact, it was supposed to be Monday. They thought it was going to be. There's going to be this massive influx of missiles and drones and everything, much more than before when they did that. The Jordanians were a big help last time and took out a lot of those that came over their airspace. And so I think they're still a partner in that, although they do that kind of privately because, the association. But they've had agreements with Israel for a good long time. And then you get Israel itself, and the Americans are involved. Let's just say it. We gave surveillance support. We gave, we may have knocked out some. Nobody talks about it, but there was definitely, Rob, we helped them identify enemy incomings way before they got there by use of our technology as well.
Yes.
The last time this happened. So we are involved. There's no doubt. And plus we supply some of the weaponry to stop the inbounds. So whether whether people want to talk about Israel or not, I'm a supporter. I don't like to see death on any side, but it's still a real issue that we are there and we are involved in some way. So we can just say, well, I've heard this forever. Let them all just kill each other over there. They've been fighting for a millennia. That doesn't involve us. Well, it does. We're there. We may not be there in troops on the ground, but you better not say that because I'll be willing to bet we have expert help on the ground.
Did you see who Hamas picked for their new leader?
I only saw a tidbit about it. What's you got story behind that? I was trying to catch up on some news.
I don't have his name, but it was the gentleman. It was the scumbucket sleazebag that
absolutely
set up the attack on October 7th.
Maybe I did. Maybe that's the headline I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I didn't get too far into it. That's about as far as I got into it because I was worn out.
Absolutely. Michael Rickwick, while you're looking that up, and Jennifer, Bible's clear to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. They shall prosper that love thee. I know there are ministries. They call themselves ministries out there. I've heard them recently. And let me give two things here because let me make this point, Rob, and I didn't intend to go here, but I just want to say this because I'm anti-Semitism, and there's a belief out there you can't say anything negative about Israel where it becomes anti-Semitism. We can be critical of actions the government makes because our government, their government, that's freedom. If we don't like something they do, we can criticize that. But people that say this about Israel, all the things they say about Israel is they're ungodly or their government, they're not Christian. They're, and so why are we supporting that? Do you think everybody in our government's Christian and following the Bible? No, there's a lot that are, but no. And we don't want to see America destroyed. Well, we don't want to see Israel destroyed. And we have struck back very hard at our enemies as well. Again, I think war it's awful. And it's awful for all sides, the innocent people. But sometimes you have to do that. But I do believe that Israel is our greatest ally in the world, and people can argue with me that. They've helped us in many ways. There's a movement out there say Israel's got us blackmailed and we're under their wing and all that. Come on. Who knows what's going on behind the rich and powerful of the world? There's a lot of that going on maybe with many governments. But I will stand with Israel, and I pray for Israel. And one day I haven't got to visit. I would gladly visit. One day we'll get to be in Israel when it's peaceful. There's a day coming, Rob. That's a promise of
Yes.
God.
I wouldn't have coffee this morning if it wasn't for my sweetie.
Way to go. I wish you could pass some of that through the screen. I do have a water, but I didn't get on the coffee. I snoozed just a little bit, and I wasn't running late, but I was a little bit pressed for time. So I was up.
I snoozed and was right back asleep. And when my wife's alarm went off, I was like, "Boo!" I couldn't jump up and go when my alarm went off. No, I had to wait until let's see. I'm still looking. I don't know. I saw this yesterday.
Maybe you'll find it. When you talked about your alarm, is that a regular alarm, or do you have something that speaks to you and says, "Robert, it's time to get out of bed. Let's go"?
Oh, I'd kill that. Robert, it's time to get out of bed and go.
Maybe we need that for our Cornbread Nation. We have the Southern Fried Podcast alarm clock, and it says, "Get up, pray up, and coffee up. Let's go." Now, yeah.
You know, Matthew McConaughey did a thing where he recorded himself talking to help people go to sleep. They would play his voice because, all right. He's got that deep Southern voice and everything. Maybe we should do something like that. You and I, we could, good morning, everybody. Dave and Rob here. It's time to wake up. Let's take it, Dave.
Yeah, get some coffee up. Come and get with us online so we can tell you about your day. I recorded. I did a new cut for one of our commercials because we did add in for the morning show Monday. So I did. You haven't heard it yet, but I put in there. We're going to try to help wake you up in your day. But I said, you may be helping us wake up. So we thank you for coming in here and getting in the comments and stuff. It really helps us to keep going. Sometimes the best things in our show is people bring up something and we kind of run that rabbit for a minute. But maybe we do need something like that. That would be cool. My son, one of my sons, well, maybe both of them, but especially one of them, he needs the alarm clock that reaches out and just smacks you because it's hard to get him up. Oh my goodness. That boy, and he really needs to wear a CPAP or something. He doesn't sleep good. He'll get up in the middle of the night, and go to the bathroom and fall asleep.
Oh,
and you think, and my, grandkid will be like, "Hurry up, Uncle!" Get in the bathroom, and she'll come in there. And she'll say, "He's asleep in the bathroom. I heard him snoring."
Oh.
That reminds me of a bunch of us guys sitting around back in the younger days of imbibing, and that you would have the guy that would go to the bathroom and pass out with the door locked.
Oh, wow.
Nobody else can go to the restroom. That didn't work out real good at all. We had a guy or two that did that before. They go to the bathroom and just pass out.
Okay. Hamas names Yahya Sinwar, mastermind of October 7th attack, as its new leader.
Okay. Well, if it's Hamas, just to put it out there, because I have done some studies in the area with Hamas. Hamas came into Gaza. They kicked out the Palestinian Authority. They always tell you they were duly elected by the people. Don't believe that. They come in by strong armed force and ran the old PLO. They changed their name to PA. They ran them out. They're in the West Bank. They still have control over the West Bank. You don't hear as much out of that side, although they do have some problems there. But it's mainly been Hamas. But Hamas has in their charter, this is their promise, their commitment as an entity, the total destruction of Israel. How do you make peace with somebody like that? I mean, if your neighbor has vowed your destruction, you can't have a conversation across the fence line and go, hey, we don't have to like each other, but let's get along. Let's look after the kids. You do your thing, I'll do mine. It doesn't work. They've vowed your destruction. I'm not saying that every person in those areas believes that, but they're more in fear of Hamas than they are of anyone else. So they will repeat the company line. There's evil people, They teach their children from the smallest of age that all of that area is stolen, occupied, and so the maps don't even show that there is Israel. It goes back a long way, but they've got to change that mentality and quit brainwashing kids.
Well, they say everybody in Palestine, say everybody in Palestine does not believe that way. Does not support Hamas. But it's coming out more and more that there's a lot of them that do.
Yeah.
They are Hamas. It's coming out more and more.
There's a lot that are. There's not. They always want to say it was just Hamas. It's not the people. But there are. They did some polls in there secretly, and there's some numbers that have came out that's probably fairly close, and that I would say it's a full 70% of the people believe that. You could fluctuate some points either way, but that's a high number, and it could be higher, it could be a little lower, but I'd say it's probably close. I mean, you take in some kids that ain't even old enough to know better. They don't have enemies. Being an enemy to someone is taught. That's taught. It's like racism. It's taught. Yeah. Kids don't come in the world looking to hate anybody or anything.
No.
So it's somebody teaches that to them as they get older, and they become brainwashed to that. So,
and I really think that here in this country, we have a hard time relating to that. I mean, everybody's talking about all of our racism issues in this country, and I didn't even know we had racism issues until someone told me we did.
Yeah.
But the sheer out volume of hatred that these kids are taught growing up, and that Hamas and stuff like that, and Palestine people that they have for the Israeli people, Iran, they hate Israel. And you've got all these groups around that just absolutely hate them. And they're taught this from like you said, children, but we cannot relate to the volume of hatred that they have for them.
Well, and they take these kids and they remember the old Hitler Youth. Well, they do that, but even worse. And you say worse? How could it be worse? Well, the Hitler Youth were, they were brainwashed and to follow Hitler, and they had their uniforms on. So they did teach them some things about how to become a soldier. They got old enough they'd put them in the military. These today go to a whole new level. They take these kids and put them through, to become a terrorist. They put them through training how to make bombs, blow people up. I mean, they're doing mock attack battles on other people, and learning to kill, firing real weapons, even at the earliest of ages. And so they grow up. There's been some that's come out of it. There's been some that they got older, just used some common sense and said, wait a minute, why do I hate these people? And then somewhere along the line, a lot of them got exposed to the Bible and became a Christian and got out because they were, it's kind of like the mafia, I guess you could say. Once you're in, you can't get out. So you can't just get out in that area. They would just kill you. So they had to leave, and some of those have relocated to the United States or they're in other countries, but they're trying to help any way they can to change that on the ground there, which it's very hard, though. Very, very hard.
Yeah.
But you know what? A nation can be changed from the inside. The Trojan horse. And that can be a bad thing or it can be a good thing. The bad thing, I think, is how it's happening in our country. We've got the Trojan horse here, but they're infesting us with communism, socialism, all those isms, and a hatred for America. There's people that's here doing that. That's everybody knows it. But in other countries, we've been able to do that with missionaries carrying Bibles in, doing Bible studies, and leading people to Christ. And you start changing the hearts of the people. Even in Iran, now these numbers are a little bit old, but there are a lot of Christians in Iran. The underground Christian community in Iran is very large. And I've heard that through all of the Middle East, the Arab nations, there is 250,000 a month. These are older numbers, estimated 250,000 a month coming to Christ. Now that's going to change hearts. It's going to take some time. It's got to allow it to grow. It's a somewhat a slow process, but it's growing because, in some of those nations, you could even be shot for having a Bible. But certainly if you try to convert someone, it's in their laws that you can be hung or shot or whatever, certainly imprisoned. You will lose your job. You will lose your home. You'll be an outcast in society, even if you are, somewhat free. So, but the work goes on slowly through. I met some people that worked in Indonesia, and it's illegal. I believe it was Indonesia. I'll be correct if I'm wrong. They had a ministry there, and I knew about it. I said, how do you do that? Because it's illegal to have a Bible. It's illegal to have a church. You can't convert anybody. So he says, well, there's always ways. And one thing that Jesus told us is to love thy neighbor. And they did that. So his wife was medical missionary, and they helped with medical needs. And he was a kind of a fixer-upper kind of guy, and he would help repair cars, fix their homes. And the way they acted in front of these people, it was noticed. They would say, there's something different about you. So this is where it was the great hazard. At what point do you bring them in? Because they're not converted, but you're getting closer and closer to these people. And one day you say, look, we're going to entrust our lives to you. And we're going to tell you why we're different. And when we tell you this, you could get money off of this information. You could have us kicked out of the country, or you could have us put in jail. And they would tell them. I can imagine what that moment's like. And so it's one by one. But you know what happens? The more that you get the nationals involved, they begin to get born again, saved, converted. They'll tell others on their own too. So they were building that community there, which was a little bit easier for their people to do than ours. But it's challenging, but you can change a nation from the inside out.
Well, we're going to pray for it anyway. So, that's the thing. We pray and we pray and we put it in God's hands. So
yeah, absolutely. So whatever your faith is this morning, we don't hide the fact that we're Christians, and I know in the name of Christ, there's been some that have did horrible things, but that's not a Christian attitude. We are to love people and to pray for them, and even though maybe some bad things happen, America's always been able to help nations, food, money, free them from dictatorship, whatever. Those are messy things. But, and yeah, maybe we didn't handle everything just right because we're not understanding that culture. I've talked to many vets of Iraq and Afghanistan, especially Afghanistan. A whole lot of re-education had to go on our side on the ground because the leaders didn't understand how things worked there. And you have to it's real tribal. You have to get those tribal leaders on board with what you're trying to do, or I don't care if they won't work with you. Mm-mm. And so, whether we want to hear it or not, this is fairly well known. One of the things that happened in Afghanistan is they went out and they wiped out their fields. The fields for drugs. Mm-hmm. They just took out their livelihood. And so then they hated you. So yes, we did protect some of those fields in order to get cooperation and to work with, to expose the Taliban and the bad guys, the really bad guys. And we may not want to hear that here, but you can't change a nation in the course of weeks. And I won't go into it this morning, but there were other things that went on as well that And there's been a lot about that. In fact, President Trump, I believe, pardoned one for his killing of an Afghan. I won't talk about, but you can go look that up if you want to see that story. Very, very, very difficult, but it is hard.
That is
it is hard. It is hard.
But you know what? I'm gonna throw you a curve this morning, David. You know, in the Lord's Prayer, you know, everybody knows the Lord's Prayer in this country. Just about everybody does. And you talking about forgiving people and praying for and forgiveness and stuff like that. And the Lord's Prayer, it says, "Forgive me of my trespasses, as I forgive those who trespass against, as we forgive those who trespass against us."
Yeah,
we're actually praying God to forgive us as we forgive others. So when you're praying for people and they're in bad shape or people have done you wrong, you got to keep that element of forgiveness in there as well. And it's hard to forgive these countries for some of the stuff that they're doing because they're killing us. They're killing Christians. But you still have to keep the element of forgiveness in there.
You do. And I will say one of the great experiences of my Christian walk was unexpected. I'll just say this real quickly. My pastor had asked me to do a session. We were doing some Wednesday night sessions. Me and another preacher were kind of handling. He would do one, and I'd do another. And my pastor had asked me to do one on forgiveness. I thought, oh, that's pretty easy. Hey, you know, it's better than talking about sin, you know, just forgiveness, you know. So I really had a strong inclination from the Lord that this, as I started into this study, that this was, I was tackling something I really wasn't ready for. So I just following the Spirit. I made some, I'd come up with this idea to make up some scenarios and pass them out that they would not see until they were there. And it was for husband and wife. And there was no kids in this. He said, I don't want kids here. Because I think he knew he didn't want to do it, but it was. He knew this was going to be tough, but he also was there and took part. So I made up these scenarios and I made them kind of extreme. And I'll just give an example of one. And then I'll tell you what happened. And I think this is the one I gave the pastor. I didn't know who I was giving them to. I just folded them up, mixed them around, handed them out. The pastor got the one where the scenario was that he was out in the car with his family. He had a daughter, and it was I say fluke, but the Lord knew, because I didn't know who got what. But he has two now, but he had one then. The scenario was that your daughter, the car T-bones you, you're hurt but survive, you and your wife, but your daughter is killed. The guy's a drunk driver. He goes to prison. You know, you rehabbing, you go to the trial. This guy goes to prison for, I don't know, 12, 15 years, whatever. I might even said 20. He gets out of prison one day. You've lost track of him. All you know he's in prison. Well, one day your church is out visiting people, and in fact, it was your deacon. And your deacon comes to you and he said, "Hey, I visited this guy at a house, and he said he'd be interested in coming to church, but he wanted to talk to the pastor first. He had something he wanted to just cover with you to be sure." Because he said he just got out of prison. And so, yeah, you know where I'm going. This is the guy. So he said, will you go back with me? He said, sure. So the guy goes, the deacon knocks on the door opens, and this guy steps out. And even though it's been 12, 15 years later, whatever it was, you're face to face with this guy who, by the way, got saved in prison, has come out. He wants to serve the Lord, and you're the first church that came to his door. He wants to know, is it okay to come to your church? The scenario stopped then, and I said, what do you do? And for him, it was, what do you say to him? Wow, man, I want to tell you, my pastor, first he wept, then he got mad, then he wept again. He said, David, I don't like this scenario. And he said, I'm going to be honest with you right now. He said, I'm a little bit mad at you. He said, you're evoking emotions in me that I honestly didn't know were there. And he goes, I have to be honest with you, I'm having a real hard time. He said, I feel like I'm in this thing. I'm in it 100%. And he said, I got to pray a whole lot. He said, because honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, brother. At this moment, I don't want to forgive. He said, because I'm thinking about my little girl and what if that happened to her? He said, but you keep going. Go to somebody else. He said, I just got to sit here and pray. And it was so powerful. And I had scenarios like that. And we did a lot of weeping that night. There was some anger. There was some laughter. We did find ways to laugh. At the end of it, we prayed that all of us would have a better understanding of the full power of forgiveness. And that it's not always as easy as we like to preach about or sing about or teach about. You can only do it through the amazing grace of God. Our human self, we can't do it on our own.
It comes down to, a lot of times, I'm not a preacher. I witness to people, but it comes down to just forgive. Just forgive. That's all you got to do is just forgive. But we're also human. We're not we're not God. We're not Jesus, and we're not the Holy Spirit. For us, we still have that core of humanity inside of us, and forgive them. After they did that to me, you got to be crazy. I'm getting them suckers, Yeah.
Well, and even if we forgive, some people say, but I won't forget.
Yeah.
And I understand that in one way, because you say, well, I won't ever be hurt again. And nobody's asking to be hurt. But sometimes you have to be careful of that, because that saying means I'm holding on to something.
Mm-hmm.
And forgiveness is forgiveness.
Yeah.
There's very powerful scenes where a lady, a mom, her son has been killed by someone, and the mom goes, and sometimes a camera crew wants to go with her. They've heard she's going to go, and she goes and sees the killer in prison, and she looks across through the glass or whatever they have them at, and she says, I just want you to know I forgive you, and I love you, and I just want you to find that place with Christ and be forgiven too. And it blows the liberal media's mind, and they're like, how can you do that? This guy killed your son, although they're always trying to protect the killers, And she said, it's through God. It's through Christ. It's the only way I can do it. But she said, I really do. I forgive. I don't have no hate in my heart, and I do love them. Now that's a person walking with the Lord right there. Right. What I will say is that we are imperfect beings, and none of us are great at anything when it comes to these areas, but we're a work in progress, and we work on it. We should be working on it every day. Yeah. So, and I say this a lot in my devotions. I don't know why. It has become a lot of when I do devotions or I preach or anything. And I just feel like it's a messaging that is more than ever needed today. And I tell people to go witness and be bold and all that. But one of the things I always tell people is go talk to those people you ain't talked to in a decade, and get over the madness you've got for each other. Both of you are being stubborn. No matter what the other side does, just go to them and tell them you forgive them, or I'm sorry, and tell them you love them. Don't carry that around no more. Get rid of it. I know families, people, sisters and brothers ain't talked to each other in 30 years because they got mad about something one day. Get rid of that mess. It don't mean y'all got to go. It don't mean y'all got to go out to the restaurant every Friday night. But why carry that weight around? You know, I just think we carry around a lot of baggage. And who needs that? That's a very strong statement there, Michael. I hope you don't mind me sharing. I just think that's well said this morning. That's well said. Appreciate you, brother, for always being in here. Your other statement there too. That's great. That's great, man. Awesome. Oops, I popped that back up. But thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Didn't plan on going down those roads, but you never know what you get on a morning show with a Southern Fried Podcast and the Cornbread Nation.
Well, see,
by the way, Rod, go ahead.
I was in there and I was asleep and my alarm went off. It did. And I woke up and I could not crowbar my eyelids up out of my head. Then I hit the off button, not the snooze button. And I thought, well, I'm just going to lay here for just a second and I'm going to get right up. So 30 minutes later, no. So we all have issues at times, and we do the best we can. We get through this world, and I am not one to be late. I do not like being late. I want to be.
Yeah, I
If
don't
I've
either.
always figured if you're on time, you're late. You should have got here 2 minutes ago. And I apologize.
So you were not one of those when you were working. You were not one of those that came in the gate on two wheels trying to beat the clock because you were. And there's people that do that every day.
Dude, I enjoy cutting up with you guys so much. I would literally get there 10 or 15 minutes early
Oh,
just
yeah.
so I'd have that little bit of time to get it started. We'd all sit up there in that break area and rawhide each other every day before work and after work. And during work, it didn't matter. We was always on each other about something. And I enjoyed those times. That was some of my favorite parts of being there.
Absolutely. I remember after work, there were times we stayed an hour after work just talking. I remember I come home and I was just having fun. I was always, leave a certain time, get home a certain time. We was having so much fun. One day my wife said, "Why are you getting home so late?" A little bit of, this is before we had cell phones, and so there wasn't no way to call me, and I couldn't call her. I was in the parking lot, and she had obviously was like, "This is so different." So I started telling her about the guys and how we're sitting around talking, and she said, "They're that interesting to talk to?" I said, "Well, yeah." She said, "More than me?" I said, "No, I won't say that."
Well,
say that.
You've just spent 12 hours with these guys. You couldn't say everything that you wanted to say in 12 hours. No, we can't. We're guys.
Because it's kind of like this show. It's kind of like the show. You get us all together in a group, and there would be just discussion that was different. So we'd have a lot of laughs again. And I think people like to laugh, especially early in the morning. You want to laugh about something. I mean, it's hard to get up in the morning. You drag, and the older you get, you're dragging up. Sometimes, you don't feel good. So we try to get your laugh on a little bit on these morning shows at least and get your day started. Hey, and it releases Monday through Friday on all the streams is our morning funny, Rob. That's one of the ways that we help people in the morning. And we give you some scripture behind that. So if you might need that along the way too, kind of give you some two kinds of food there. We'll feed the soul with some laughter and with some words. So they come out pretty close to the same time every morning.
Our morning funnies are kind of some of them are silly, some of them are actually funny, some of them make you think a little bit. But I tell you what, if we could turn that corner up there in that old first thing in the morning, you make it go up toward your eye a little bit and a smile, just a smirk, anything. If we get any kind of reaction, good.
Yeah.
You'll carry that with you.
Yeah, and the funny this morning is about those plastic chairs, Rob. I watched it again last night because I was loaded at a couple of other streams, and I was sitting laughing at it again. Us big old boys in the South, or wherever you're from, plastic chairs are the enemy of Satan.
No, they're not. They're the enemy of everybody.
Well, I mean, they're the enemy from Satan, is what I mean. He planted the idea to make plastic chairs, and us bigger folk.
Chair legs. I don't know about that.
Yeah,
bigger. Tiny chair legs, you just stab right through the ground.
You're a big old. Here's we'll give you one for the road here. We're gonna run a couple of commercials. We haven't run any, and then we're gonna do our closing here in a second. But Robert, you're a big old boy. I probably should say this for funny, but you're a big old boy when you go to buy one of those chairs that it folds up. You take out to watch the concert or watch your grandkids play ball or whatever. When you look at the chair and look at the max weight it will support, you're not worried about color, what's on it. You just want to know, will it support a big old boy?
It's like a boat, max occupancy weight. If you're back there ciphering up how much that motor weighs, is
Yeah.
there room for me in this boat?
And every big old person has ever had that moment when they've set in one and they hear the stitching snapping. You know it's over. You know you've exceeded the recommended weight maximum.
All right. Well, let's hit a couple commercials here. And
then we'll just do our outro too. If you want to come back and I'll say bye, that's fine for you to do that. Well, let's run a couple commercials, especially ARA. If you're not a supporter of ARA, get on the Cornbread Nation here. Everybody can give them $1 or something, or hey, get one of them animals.
Oh, and I started a group up on Facebook.
That's right.
For Cornbread Nation. Y'all come in there. Y'all let us know. Give us your thoughts. I got a thing up there right now. Where are you from? Let's see where y'all are from. We want to get the Cornbread Nation rocking and rolling. We're going to post some videos in there. I may post a poll up every once in a while. But yeah, Cornbread Nation is real. Don't make no doubt about that. All right. So, and if y'all aren't supporting ARA, get on the ball. Here, let me play these, and we'll probably just fade right on out. Love y'all. Have a great day.
Here at the Southern Fried Podcast, one of the blessed things we've been able to do is partner with the wonderful people at Animal Rescue Alliance, Inc., ARA. These folks are a no-kill shelter in Donaldsonville, Georgia. You see the contact info on the screen. And these folks would love to have you come adopt a dog or a cat. They have folks that come from all over the United States, not just the state of Georgia. They're great folks. It's been a wonderful partnership between Southern Fried Podcast and ARA. And we've been blessed to meet some of the folks that have adopted animals from ARA. Also, we've been able to encourage people to donate and volunteer. They encourage volunteers that are in the area, and they're just wonderful people. We'd love for you to contact them, meet them too, go on their website, see some of the animals, and we know you'll want to partner with them too by taking a dog or a cat to their forever home. Join with us, the Southern Fried Podcast, in support of this great work of the Animal Rescue Alliance, Inc., ARA. We know you'll be happy you did. I know we are. Hey, this is Dave with the Southern Fried Podcast. One of the favorite things that we do is sit out on the front porch with a glass of sweet tea and just talk about whatever. That's what you do on the front porch. Wave at the neighbors as they go by, or even a stranger. We're friendly people, and we like to just talk about whatever. You never know what Rob and Dave are going to talk about on the front porch, and sometimes Chris joins us, and then you really don't know what we're going to talk about. We'll laugh a little bit, we'll shock each other, and maybe, just maybe, you'll join in with us and chat with us on the front porch. Join us live for Front Porch Talking each Friday night at 7 p.m. That's your friends here at the Southern Fried Podcast. Hey, this is Dave with the Southern Fried Podcast. Please join us each Wednesday evening as we go live for Hump Day News, where we talk about a little bit of everything. We'll laugh a little bit. We'll tell you a little bit of sports news and other news that's going on. Each Wednesday evening at 7 p.m., join us for the SFP Hump Day News live. You're midweek, making your way through another work week. Join us, and we'll try to make you laugh a little bit and keep your day a little brighter.
Well, once again, it's time, my friends, for another meet and greet. We're Southern Fried and nationwide, so hang on to your seat. Look around, here's what I found. I guess you'll never know what you'll see on the Southern Fried Podcast.